HGTV presents Monica Pearson, One-on-One.
Diamond Dallas Page made his mark as a professional wrestler, and now he's making his mark as a yoga instructor. Hard to believe? That's why I went one-on-one with him at his Marietta Studio, and he took me to the mat.
Out to a T. Let me hear you hulk it up.
Hulk it up.
Attention. And he's great job.
I love it. Thank you.
Oh, there it is. We have a diamond cutter, and they're on their feet in the Georgia Dome. Win them and over.
Diamond Dallas Page is known for his finishing move, the Diamond Cutter. And it's moves like this that got him into the World Wrestling Entertainment Hall of Fame.
Energy. He's sucking it up. Page has got the diamond cutter. Oh, it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
But now it's his yoga moves that grab the attention of people who sign up for his online yoga program, DDP Yoga. Back injuries took him out of the ring at the age of 42. Yoga got him back in.
And they said my career was over then. I had 3 different spine specialists tell me, like, no, it's your lower back, it's your 4 and 5. You're at 42, you're almost 43. We can't, fuse it and expect you to go out there, because then you'll really cripple yourself. So I lived in that depression for a minute, because I just signed a multi-million-dollar 3-year deal. And if I'm not in that ring in 6 months, it goes bye-bye. And I wanted to be in there now, but it's like any athlete. You're one injury away from your career being over. And, I wallowed in that misery and poor me for about, 4 or 5 days. It was a while. For me, it was a lifetime. And I was married to Kimberly at the time, and she was like, I think yoga could heal your body. Like, yoga, not happening. I could have been the poster boy at 42 years old for the guy who wouldn't be caught dead doing yoga. Kind of funny that now my name's attached to it, but at the time, just shows you anything's possible. And I really learned that flexibility was youth, not just in my body, but in my mind. You've got to be flexible. You've got to want to try different things. So I did, and it was brutal because she was in great shape and could do anything. I couldn't do anything, and there was no modifications in yoga that I could find anywhere. So, like I do all the time, I figured it out. I figured out what worked for me, like when we were working together. Those are things I did to get myself back in the ring. And at one point, like, I'm still doing rehab at that time. When I get injured, I'm doing rehab every single, 5 days a week. And I started doing yoga about the 5th or probably 6th day. And I would do 20 minutes, I couldn't do anymore. Then I would do at night, 20 minutes. And then it went to 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes throughout the day. And then it built to 30 minutes. Eventually, I built to 3 hours a day, all different points of the day, because that was my job. If I can strengthen my core and strengthen and help to heal my back, because I'm bone on bone. God gave us this amazing spine. And in between are these amazing things called discs. And they're like shock absorbers. Well, on my 4 and 5, take a jelly donut and do that. So everything that I have you doing is lengthening yourself constantly. And in the beginning, when it comes to a diamond cutter, some days I can't go back farther than this. But by just doing this and lengthening my spine, before you know it, I can go back really far and then hulk it up, tension. Or just doing this will make you feel better.
So when you started doing this and your body got stronger, then you decided to go back in the ring.
Exactly. That was the goal. And I at 42, they said my career's over. At 43, I was a world champ. I got to step in the ring with the greats, Flair, Hogan, and Sting, who was the franchise. And getting back in there, becoming the heavyweight world champion is like our Oscar, and it really shows that you could carry the ball. You're a guy that, are putting asses in the seats. You're a guy that, is selling a lot of merchandise, and they can make money with you.
No one was making money with him when he started wrestling.
And originally, I tried wrestling when I was 22. I was handsome Dallas Page, and just to try to get heat, get the fans, like, oh, he thinks he's handsome. But I only had 3 matches. I hurt my knee, and it put me out. And I ended up in the bar business, which I'd already been in since I was 17. At 23, I got to run my first little rock and roll bar, and it kind of took me off the charts. And I would end up running a huge club in Fort Myers, Florida, that I owned a small piece of. And Jake the Snake Roberts literally came in my club. And then Ted DiBiase did, and a bunch of the guys, because if you work Miami one night and Tampa the next, it's 300 miles. So that was like a layover, and I always took care of the guys. And it got me thinking, and one night I was sitting in the back, we're collecting money and we're having a couple drinks after hours, and I just thought, well, I'm too old to be a wrestler, but maybe I could be a manager, and Diamond Dallas Page could have the Diamond Exchange and the Diamond Dolls, and that's where it started.
But that's just part of the story. Coming up, how Diamond Dallas Page went from a promoter to becoming the oldest wrestling rookie and why he was forced into it. Plus, how getting rejected on Shark Tank actually turned out to be a blessing.
Diamond Dallas Page grew up in Point Pleasant, New Jersey as Page Joseph Falkenberg.
But what I find fascinating is you called yourself Diamond Dallas. Why Diamond and why Dallas?
Well, originally I was a Dallas Cowboy fan since I was a little kid, so Dallas came into that. I love my first name, Page, and Diamond was my birth sign, and I realized at a very early age that the name Page Joseph Falkenberg was never going to draw any money in the world of professional wrestling. But Diamond Dallas Page might. And what ended up happening, it took me 3.5 years to get to Ted Turner's World Championship Wrestling as a manager. And after it took me 4 months to get a contract. 5 months into that contract, they pulled me in the office, and I'm managing 2 different, the Freebirds and the Diamond Stud, who was Scott Hall. And Magnum TA says, listen, D, Dusty doesn't have the heart to tell you this, but we still want you to be a color commentator. We still want you in production and helping the guys with their interviews, but we can't let you manage anymore. And I'm like, why? What did I do wrong? He goes, well, it's not your fault. I go, if it's not my fault, we can fix it. And he said, well, not really. I'm like, why? What is the problem? He goes, well, it's you. It's the hair, when I had that long hair, the clothes, the wrap, the bling, the diamond dolls. He's like, you're taking too much attention away from the wrestlers. And I looked at him, Monica, straight in the face, and I said, Magnum, are you telling me I'm too over the top for professional wrestling? And he laughed, not that hard, but he laughed. And he said, D, what we should have done was put you in the ring and put a pair of tights on you and see if you could do this. Now, I was 35 and a half, knowing I had 7 months left. Like, everybody goes down. Everyone gets depressed. Everyone has their, the rug pulled out from under. The key is not to stay there and wallow in the misery, because I get depressed at times like everybody else. I just don't stay there. And my brain started working, and I started to imagine that I got 7 months left of my contract. I can go down to power plant and I can start training now, and I'm going to get in the ring. I mean, Monica, everyone laughed at me. They thought it was the funniest thing they ever heard, because you don't start at 35. Most guys are retired at 35.
You were the oldest rookie
ever. And again, no one really saw anything. And what really ended up happening is 9 months in, I tore my rotator cuff and they let me go. So now the dream's over. But I befriended Jake Roberts, who had come in my club years before. When he came into, Jake the Snake Roberts came into WCW, our brotherhood really started to come together. And he had called me up to see how I was doing because he had had a falling out with WCW, and he ended up moving in with me and my wife Kimberly at the time, and he stayed with us for 3 months. I learned so much from him, and he stayed with us until he lost the 12-foot black cobra in my house. So now it was found, but Kim was like, I love Jake, but he has to go.
With the snake.
Yeah, the snake I put in a bag, in a box, taped it all up and go, bro, it's out of my hands now. But Jake would continue to help me, Monica, the whole time. He would watch my matches with me, he would critique them, and him and Dusty Rhodes, without those two guys, I don't have not only the amazing career I had, but I don't have a Hall of Fame career, you know?
What did Dusty teach you that you still keep in mind?
Oh, God, so much. Like, he was one of the most positive cats I have ever seen. Like, his energy, living on the edge of a lightning bolt. Like he would always, I would ask him, I say, wrestling's the greatest, I could clarify this. Wrestling's the most fun and the greatest thing I've ever did at that point, but it's also the worst because there's a lot of backstabbing. There's a lot of guys, you know, because it's very political. It's like Rome back in the day with muscle. And I would hear people burying him at times, and he would never sell it. He would never let on. He would never let anybody take his energy from him. And that's something, I'll tell you something, you won't use this, but I gotta tell you this story. One night, I could call him anytime I wanted to. And eventually I knew he would get back to me. And one night I was complaining in 1994 that Dream, they don't see it, man. I was on a rant. You know, I know I'm never gonna be you. I know I'm never gonna be Hulk. I know I'm never gonna be Flair. I go, but I know I'm never gonna be the world champion. But these guys, they went, Dareth, enough. What did you just say? Now I felt kind of stupid. I was like, well, Dust, I know I'm never gonna be you. He said, no. He said, what did you say after that? I said, well, I know I'm never gonna be the world champion. He said, then what the hell are you doing it for? Dallas, if you don't believe that you could be the world champion as hard as you work, much time as you put in the business, you need to get the hell out of the business right now. And Monica, he kept talking. And I felt like he reached through the phone and just slapped me. And I can't tell you a thing he said after that, but I can tell you exactly what I did. There was a pad next to my phone, and I pulled it over, and I wrote on that ledger pad, I will be the champion, the world champion, in 5 years or less. It was 4 years, 4 months, and 14 days. Crazy as it sounds, I stepped in the ring with Ric Flair. I stepped in the ring with Hogan and the Stinger. It was a four-way dance with three of the best of all time. And Nature Boy took the diamond cutter right in the middle, and it again changed my life again. You know, it was it really showed that all the hard work really did pay off. And I had to visualize this. I had to start imagining and seeing all of this. I was watching a documentary on David Geffen, the music and movie mogul. And he said that he believed that we were all a figment of our imagination. And some of us have a greater ability to imagine than others. That's powerful. I mean, I stopped that, rewound that, and wrote that down. And I tell people all the time, you hear something powerful, just don't think it, ink it. Like, write it down and make it a part of your DNA.
Determination is part of his DNA, and he was determined to overcome a learning disability.
I had ADD and dyslexia when no one knew what it was. You know, I was reading at a third grade level at the age of 30. And at 31, I made a decision that I was going to learn how to read proficiently. And I tell people all the time, I tell this story all the time that, you know, when you're going to make a decision like that, you got to set yourself up with a goal. And mainly to make yourself accountable. And so I set a goal that I was going to read a book from cover to cover. Now, not a big deal for you, but for me at that time, it was overwhelming, you know, and so I broke it down. That I was going to read one page from that book every day. And I always tell people, breaks things down, but also sometimes you got to change like your circumstance. Today, I'm good. You know, still when I read out loud, if it's something I haven't read before, it can really challenge me and rock me. And then you go into your head, that little kid that everybody's laughing at. Like, it's just in your subconscious, you know? So I just, right, I'll expose it in the beginning, like, hey, ADD and dyslexic. Don't expect it to sound the way you might read it. You know what I'm saying?
His trademark diamond cutter move was a hit in the ring and now in the yoga studio. Coming up, I try out the move myself in our one-on-one yoga session.
Inhale, touchdown. Exhale, bring it down. Push your thumb and index fingers together. Straighten those arms a little bit more. Inhale, take it back. Arms out to a T. Clench your fist, hulk it up, girl. Yeah! There you go. Tension. Shoulders back, chest out. Flex quads, flex glutes, straighten those legs. Inhale and a touchdown, get the height. Huddle up. Now I want you to bring your hands on your knees. See, I just turned my tailbone up? Yeah. Beautiful. God, you're unbelievable. Deep breath. I don't have to give you much coaching. Exhale, just fold forward. Tuck your chin, let your spine go long. Let it good. Inhale, hands on your knees, bent-legged bar back. Push here so you lengthen that spine. Exhale, fold forward. Good. Inhale, bent-legged bar back. I just try to straighten them a little bit more and just kind of fold forward. Great, your flexibility is off the charts. Now just roll up like a rag doll. Now I call this gimme, gimme, gimme. Reach with this left hand. Now reach with the right. There you go, come up with your toes. Reach with the left. Try to tap that foot off the ground a little bit. Great job. Opposite side. Now bring it down. Diamond cutter. Inhale, take it back. Out to a T. Hulk it up, girl. Yeah! Tension.
The diamond.
Well, you know, the finishing maneuver in professional wrestling, that's how an opponent beats another opponent. If you can really get the crowd excited about it, you can build a career off it. And I did, because they saw how hard I worked to get there. And in the beginning, I wasn't beating anybody. And at some point I got to beat box. How can I get the fans to, push me to the people? Because guys, you do all the writing. Because I don't want to spoil this for anybody, but wrestling is predetermined. And I know that, and so is everybody else. They know that there's someone writing it, but who are they? Well, they're looking at the guys they think can draw money, and they didn't see it in me. So what I did is I thought, well, Batman's got the bat signal. I could have the diamond cutter signal, and I'd throw it up, bang, and I'd bring it down. And the first time I did it, no one. Second, third, fourth, fifth, nobody. Now, one of the other things I did, thinking outside the box, when we weren't on TV, which was once a week, there's 4 or 5 other days I'm gonna be wrestling with no cameras. So I brought my own. And I set it up, and I filmed every match I ever had. And one night, when I threw it up, bang, and I came down with it, I saw a father and a daughter start to raise their hands, but I came down so fast, they brought their hands down. And I went, oh, wow, that's interesting. The next time I did it, and if you see anything from 97 on, I would bring it up, and to myself, I'm counting 3, 2, 1, bang. Next thing you know, 100 people did it, then 500, then 1,000, then 10,000.
But they're still in it. Steiner goes face first. Diamond cutter! We've got a new champion.
Now, someone else has done that, and you actually took him to court, was Jay-Z.
Well, we never got quite to court because we did, and all I can say is the matter has been resolved. And I got a lot of respect for Jay-Z just for what he's done for, his community and so many. He's helped a lot of people, and we worked it out. And
you worked it out.
We worked it out.
He paid you for it.
We worked it out. We worked it out. What
didn't work out was getting money from the millionaires on the TV show Shark Tank. Diamond Dallas Page appeared with Arthur Boorman, a disabled veteran who was on crutches for 15 years and now is walking and running thanks to DDP Yoga.
DDP gave me hope. They said I'd always need leg braces. They were wrong. Thank you for giving me hope. I lost over 100 pounds in the first 6 months. DDP Yoga changed my life.
So when you were on Shark Tank just looking for $200,000 for your app, they told you no.
Right.
That was a blessing.
100%. And I was really there more than anything for the exposure and the credibility, because Arthur, that disabled veteran, was on that show with us and they had never seen him, so it really shocked them. But again, I was there to let people know what I'm doing, and that was one of their highest rated shows. And God, you know, as far as the company was concerned, it did $1 million in 5 days. And over the next years, it would be millions. And it really helped put us on the map.
In 2.5 years, Diamond Dallas Page will be 70, and he's tempted to enter the ring one more time. But he remembers why he retired at 49.
Because it was more important for me to, and I'm just gonna do this cold, it was more important for me to be able to grab either one of my feet and take it and pull it over my head and have a conversation with you at 6'4", 228 pounds of twisted steel and sex appeal, and 67 years young. It was more important for me to be able to have that whenever I want that than to be still beating on guys, you know? And I did go back for one more match back when I was like 3 weeks from 64. And that's when I dove off the top rope, and that was Cody Rhodes. He wanted me to have a spectacular finish. He was doing the booking for AEW back then. Now he's a mega star in the WWE, but he looked at me and he said, Dustin's gonna do this flip, QT's gonna do this, and then you're gonna go off the top on everybody. And I literally had to think like risk and reward, because they just saw me in the ring. Jake texted me that night, no ring rust? I'd been in the ring in really 15 years like that. And I went out there and I did really well. And God was on my side, was watching me. Because if you ever watched that off the top rope
I did. I saw the video.
At some point, if you keep watching, my head bounces off the ground. And I didn't notice it, and because of the adrenaline, I didn't feel it. But it didn't knock me out, but it did bounce off like a basketball.
He's called the People's Champion, but Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson also claims the title. Coming up, the trash talk that ensued when they came face to face.
And all of a sudden I hear, "Hey, Diamond." And I know that voice, because that voice is, he's rolling into character, and Big Show gets out of my way, and he's putting on one of his $1,500 Versace shirts, and he says, "You know, Diamond, there's only one People's Champion."
Then later, Kool Moe Dee shares which popular rapper he had a beef with back in the day.
I didn't appreciate the fact that he was saying he was the greatest rapper, and he was so superficial, in my opinion, and very materialistic. I was very offended, so I took my shots as an MC. You can't do what you do and say you're the best, because the best has more to do with who you are than what you stand for and what you do and what you're around about.
Best man wins. I'm rooting for a great match.
Diamond Dallas Page is known as the original People's Champion of wrestling, but some call Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson the People's Champ. Paul "Big Show" White introduced the two in Canada, and there was some trash talk.
So I was coming by to grab Paul to go out to dinner, and as we were leaving, he goes, "Do you want to meet The Rock?" I said, "I'd love to meet The Rock." And I came in there, he was the nicest guy. He wasn't at the top by any stretch at that point, but he was on that rocket that you could tell it was starting to take off. And we had a great conversation, and he was super humble. And we shook hands, and I'm walking to the door, and I'm just about to walk out the door. And all of a sudden I hear, "Hey, Diamond." And I know that voice, because that voice is, he's rolling into character, and Big Show gets out of my way, and he's putting on one of his $1,500 Versace shirts, and he says, "You know, Diamond, there's only one People's Champion." And Big Show's like, "Oh!" And I just deadpanned him, and I went, "You know, Rock, you're right. And you, my friend, well, you're looking at him." Oh! And I walked out the door, he gave me the eyebrow, and Big Show's like, oh my God, you just stopped him, nobody stops him. And it would have just been so magical to go back and really, like, the interviews that I could have done with him. I mean, look at him, I am so proud of him. The biggest star in the world is one of us. And, you know, since that, John Cena's blown up huge. Dave Bautista's blown up huge. I mean, it opened the doors for so many guys. And I've done a series of movies. I just did one last year with Don Johnson. It's on Hulu right now, and it's called High Heat. But The Rock opened up those doors to us, and couldn't be any prouder of him.
So we got to do it.
3, 2, 1. Bang!
While Diamond Dallas Page wrestles with yoga, rapper Kool Moe Dee enjoys boxing, physically and verbally. He's a rapper described by Rolling Stone magazine as one of the founding fathers of rap. He now calls Metro Atlanta home, but his roots are in Harlem, New York. We went one-on-one at the iHeart Studios in Northwest Atlanta.
You know that I rocked up, but 3 days later, go see the doctor. Yeah, all right, that sounds cool.
Go See the Doctor was Kool Moe Dee's first underground hit after leaving the group The Treacherous Three. Mohandas Deweese is listed as the lyricist. That is Kool Moe Dee's real name.
Why did your dad name you Mohandas?
Because from his mouth, from a child, he said he did not want his children to have any European names, white names actually. He wanted us to have some kind of black name, so he named me after Mahatma Gandhi's first name is really Mohandas. And Gandhi is what they call me Gandhi all my life, so I was named after Mahatma Gandhi.
He was named for Gandhi, but he idolized Muslim minister and black activist Malcolm X and boxing champion Muhammad Ali.
And I was very, very good with my hands, so I could always box. And I idolized Muhammad Ali, and I looked at him, and I said, the main thing in boxing is not about hit and not get hit. The main thing is not get hit. And I absolutely took that on to me as a personality. So my thing was a very, very aggressive person, but I would never, ever get caught. And the joke with my friends in the neighborhood is like, I was Money Mayweather before Mayweather, because I never lost a fight in the hood. And I had the most fights in the hood. So that's one of my claims of fame before hip hop.
So you just said you had the most fights in the hood.
Yes.
What were you fighting about?
Because I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't get high. And the hood has a mentality that dumbs itself down to the lowest common denominator. And I thought that I was very, very young, and I didn't have any polish with it. So if you offer me a drink, you were talking fight. Let me get some weed. Like, what? I want to fight you. Like, you can't offer me drugs, because I thought that was a trap. A hood trap was drugs and alcohol. And the fact that we embrace it so coolly, I'm like, that was very corny. So I even named myself Cool because I didn't smoke and drink.
So when you started, and I hate to use rapping with you, I prefer to use rhyming.
Okay.
Because what you do, I guess in my mind, when I think of rapping, I think of negative.
Okay.
But you do very positive. Why did you take a twist, whereas so much of rap is denigrating to women and to people of color?
Well, if I break it down, I always prided myself on being a very, very strong critical thinker at a very young age. I always analyzed. I never just took what the teacher said. You said, we discovered America in this year. I said, how do you discover a place that people are already living at? And it was already on the map, so how do you discover it? And I got in trouble for that. But I didn't have a problem being an outspoken voice for the most part, because I thought that you should always question any information that came to you. That came from my father also. Question everything that comes to you. So because I questioned everything, I was very, very cognizant. There we go again with the cognizant. I was very cognizant of what information was coming towards me. So when you offer me a drink, I'm like, what is your purpose? You want to get me drunk for what reason?
I used to live downtown, 129th Street, Convent. Everything's upbeat.
So let's talk about the Wild Wild West.
Yes, my neighborhood. I'm part of my one-man play is called The Truth Be Told, and I'm talking about I come from a real neighborhood. And what people are really dumbing down the hood meaning to mean ratchet and whatever the colloquialism they put to it, but the hood in my neighborhood, the older guys made sure that the young guys didn't sell drugs. And if it did sell drugs, you couldn't do it in the hood. We're trying to keep our neighborhood clean. And that was part of what the elders were doing at the time. They were making sure, and I have guys that I'm gonna name them when it comes out next time, I'm gonna name them for sure. They made sure that if you did do drugs or sell drugs, go down there and do it, not up here. And they were very, very serious about that. Nobody made an announcement, but they actually, if junkies came over on the hill and were shooting up, they would actually beat them up. So I come from that kind of neighborhood, and that's what a real hood is, quite frankly.
Name one thing people would be surprised to know about you.
Probably some of the negative stuff that I definitely don't want to get into, because I don't want to make it seem like I'm Pollyanna, because I definitely have a dark side, so to speak, and I have a side that I'm not really proud of, but it's very, very prominent, for sure, absolutely.
Okay, now you've got me going in a direction, because you know I'm going to ask you, what do you mean there's a dark side?
I was a womanizer, for sure. Back in the day, I was definitely a womanizer. Absolutely, and people thought that was the reason I didn't want to get married. I said, that's not about it. It's way more deeper than that. But when the hormones kicked in, like, oh my goodness, I was uncontrollable as a young boy. But growing into it and growing out of it was a very, very telling part of the experience.
So what would you change about you at this age of 61?
I might be a little more inviting, a little more welcoming, because I'm very, not standoffish, but the whole point of the shades is like, I'm telling you, the world is not invited in.
What do you want your legacy to be?
Very critical thinking and very, very analytical about breaking every iota of life down. Constantly, always thinking all the way through everything.
Doesn't that get tiring?
Not at all. As a matter of fact, it's part of the thing, hand in hand with no drinking. Drinking takes you off your A-game thinking. And that rhymes now, so yeah.
I was going to say, you rhymed that.
Drinking takes you off your A-game thinking, so I didn't like that at all. And it said, and I remember being at a record label that said, people don't want to think, they want to just dance. I'm like, if you don't want to think, that's an insult to me, because I only want you to think. I want you to always think.
Even while dancing?
Yes.
A war of words. Up next, the story behind Kool Moe Dee's past beef with LL Cool J. Plus, what concerns him about today's rappers. That's when One-on-One continues.
The 80s album cover started a feud between Kool Moe Dee and LL Cool J, who always wore a Kangol hat.
Over the years, you all have kind of done a little verbal boxing.
Yes.
Is that really real?
It was real from the standpoint of I didn't appreciate the fact that he was saying he was the greatest rapper, and he was so superficial, in my opinion, and very materialistic, and I never supported American business principles and definitely American business practices. So the fact that he kind of fed in and led with that, I was very offended. So I took my shots at the MC, from the MC side. So I said, again, you can't be the best. You can't do what you do and say you're the best, because the best has more to do with who you are than what you stand for and what you do and what you're rhyme about.
So have y'all ever sat across the table to talk about this?
We're actually cool friends now. I call him on his birthday. He calls me. We're very cool. He's very cool now. And I admired him from his skill set, for sure. I admired him always. You would never give that up, because just the ego and the bravado. It's like, I'm gonna do you. I'm the best. I'm the best. I'm the best. I'm the best. We always thought we were the best. I'm sure he thought he was the best, and I thought I was the best. So again, that's just from a skill set. But when we talk about the substance of a person and what they bring to the equation, I thought that's what really makes you the best.
You were the first rapper to appear on the Grammy Awards.
Yes.
What was your feeling about that?
Actually, I was insulted simultaneously as proud, because I thought the fact that we didn't have a category which I think, again, we're always forced as Black Americans to see ourselves through a white filter. As Toni Morrison says, the white gaze. We always have to look at ourselves through a white filter. So when they acknowledge us, then we're valid. So it's kind of like what I'm going through with the hip for 50th anniversary hip hop. It's still coming through a white filter. It's the most popular music at the time, and they're honoring the people from that last 10 or 15 years. But I'm like, and 30 years ago, we were building it and nobody was paying attention. And when it first came out, they said, oh, it's not gonna last, it's gotta be a fad. Like, again, that's still a white voice telling us that this is not real. But it was real to us, and we were living in the hood, and it was making all the noise it was, and until they figured out how they could monetize it, then it became validated. So that's my double-edged sword with the Hip Hop 50.
So you talk about that, and I was reading this article where they said you are one of the few rappers that was in the beginning, the middle, and there is no end, but you are still valid all these years later. Why do you think you've lasted so long?
I think substance is reverse. Style over substance is a part of what has happened in hip hop. We got caught up in the style over the substance, and the substance will always resonate no matter what.
Fellow New Yorker and rapper Jay-Z says he was influenced by the music of Kool Moe Dee.
Admittedly, and I'll say this very honestly now, I think Jay-Z is a genius, quite frankly. And I think the fact that white America has chosen to promote the fact that he was a drug dealer that's now making money selling records, they're telling that part of the story, but they're not talking about his ingenuity and his thought process of putting those songs together. So I think he's more of a genius than they're giving him credit for, because they want to keep the story in the forefront that he was a drug dealer. He was a drug dealer that started selling records of it. That's the lowest part of the equation. Like, yes, he did, but that's not his main story. But they want to make sure they promote that all the time. I said, this is always, in my opinion, back to my father from the very beginning. The press is making sure we see ourselves through a filter. That is the lowest filter that we can see ourselves through, intentionally all the time.
His message and image are important to him and caused him to turn down a movie role.
I turned down New Jack City. That's one of the things you don't know about me. I was supposed to be in New Jack City with Ice-T. It was supposed to be Kool Moe Dee and Ice-T. And the irony is going to be, I was going to be the drug dealer, and Ice-T was going to be because he's the gangbanger, he's going to be the cop. That was Mario Van Peebles' thought process. And I turned it down because I said, it's more important to, even though I want to act and I love to do it, but you're trying to get Kool Moe Dee as a drug dealer. It's not that getting an actor. And Wesley Snipes did a great job, quite frankly. And I'm a big fan of Wesley Snipes, but it was a great job for him. But I was very, very cognizant again of what my image was. And I said, to take my image and make me a drug dealer is something that the oppressor would love to do, and I just wouldn't do it.
Marriage, the 4th of July, and Christmas. All the things Kool Moe Dee refuses to celebrate. He tells me why when One-on-One continues.
Kool Moe Dee is disciplined and has rules to live by, which include not celebrating marriage, the 4th of July, and Christmas.
So you told me that you have never been married.
Never.
You said you will not celebrate Christmas, the 4th of July, or marriage. Take each one and tell me why.
If I want to date a woman, the government has no choice in that, no say in that. And you're saying I have to get a license from the state to get it validated for me to date her? Like, my word is all I need, quite frankly. And her word is, if she says she loves me and we're gonna be together, that's all I need. I don't need any government, I don't need any agency, I don't need a state, I don't need a license, so I just present it all the way. Christmas, I'm like, how are you gonna give me a God concept and then monetize it? I'm like, how, it's really about business more than anything else. And you're trying to celebrate me, and I remember people being up in arms because they had a black Santa Claus at some point, and they really had, I saw this online, literally people arguing about Santa Claus is white. And I said, you're gonna, not only racial, but you're gonna make Jesus or make the argument about his color one thing, and then talk about God and the concept and monetize it. You're gonna sell things on this day because he was born on that day, like really?
Kool Moe Dee celebrates Juneteenth, when the slaves in Texas learned they were free in 1865. He does not celebrate the 4th of July.
At the end of the day, it's like you're celebrating your freedom while you had slaves, which is the most ironic thing on the planet. It's like, how do you celebrate the 4th of July while you have slaves? It's like literally the living testament to hypocrisy. So I just couldn't do it. I can't do it at all.
How you like me now? How you like you now?
Yes. I'm pretty much cool where I am now, right? And because I don't ever stop growing, I don't ever stop thinking. And I think learning is a constant process. I'm learning every day to this day, so I love that part of life.
Kool Moe Dee is working on a one-man play about his life and music that he hopes to premiere next year at the Apollo Theater in Harlem. Finally tonight, someone you should know, Brett Turner, a son of Ted Turner, who has made a name for himself as a photographer and environmentalist.
It is said a picture is worth 1,000 words. These photos speak about conservation of land and the animals on them. This is land owned by Ted Turner, creator of CNN and the superstation TBS, and at one time, the largest landowner in the United States. These photos are the work of one of his sons, Rhett Turner.
So the first question is the story behind your name of Rhett Lee.
Well, my dad loves the movie Gone with the Wind. His initials are R.E.T., but he is a big fan of Gone with the Wind, and he loved Rhett Butler, so my name came right straight from Gone with the Wind.
So when you were growing up, was that a hindrance or help?
Look, I guess one of the kind of things is kind of a bummer. You go to like Stone Mountain or any place that has, or Six Flags here in Atlanta, and you look for your name on the license plates for a kid to put on your bicycle. Mine was not there.
One of the fascinating things about you and your siblings, and there are 5 of you, is that very young, you learned about conservation and about the environment through the things your parents had you do. Talk about that.
Well, my dad got me introduced into scouting as a young age. My older brother was too, as well as my younger brother. But my dad started getting properties, a small lake here, a small lake there, and we would go fishing on these lakes every weekend and talk about the environment, talk about the land. And my brothers and I were doing our summer jobs, and there's this pond on this property called Hope in Jacksonboro, South Carolina, and we fenced it around, and then there was these 2 types of weeds, duckweed and pigweed, and alligators were still in there, and we were picking it out, and insects, terrible insects would bite you and everything. But my dad's idea was, do summer jobs, get your hands dirty, and learn a good day of work for a good day of pay.
So going back, when you went to college, you went to Citadel.
Yes.
Why did you pick a military college and then major in business?
My dad, that's kind of a long story, but my dad made the choice of the Citadel for me, and I really made great friends. One of the great things about the Citadel or anything, it takes young men and women, takes them to themselves and brings everybody at one level, and then builds you back up. And everybody's the same when you start, and everybody's different as you go through the school. But your character and your honesty and the things that the Citadel teaches last with you longer than the class that you went to in studying business.
First, he worked for CNN as a video journalist, video editor, and sound technician on the international desk. Then he tried advertising sales but didn't like it. In his spare time, he tried still photography and ended up enrolling at the Rhode Island School of Design to study photography and video.
When did you know this is what I really want to be? Well,
I just like one of the classes that I was here in Atlanta, we took slide pictures, and the teacher went through all the slides of everybody's slides, and he goes back to mine and he goes, "Who took this?" And I raised my hand and he said, "You're somebody who can sell photography. Somebody will buy your work."
And people are buying his book that is chock full of photos of his father's properties and the endangered species being protected and others brought back from the brink of extinction, like the bison of Ted's Montana Grill.
The great thing about the bison is that it's now our nation's mammal, and certainly bison have come back from the end of the 19th century to 400 animals to close to 500,000 animals, and it is a success story, especially in the last 20 years. It's doubled in the numbers.
Rhett Turner, someone you need to know because his photos speak volumes about the beauty of nature and what needs to be restored and preserved.
Thank you for joining me, and I hope you'll join me every Sunday now at our new time of 6, right here on Peachtree TV. Good night.